New Thinking Allowed is presented by the California Institute for Human Science, a fully accredited university offering distant learning graduate degrees that focus on mind, body, and spirit. The topics that we cover here. We are particularly excited to announce new degrees emphasizing parapsychology and the paranormal. Visit their website at cihs.edu.
Thinking Allowed. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. Today is a special program, an unusual program. We're going to be talking about some new sculptures that are going to be residing here in the New Thinking Allowed studio, and I'm very pleased to have with me today the sculptor himself, Joe Cajero. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm just very honored that my work is welcome into your studio.
Your work is very welcome into the studio, and in a way, I suppose it's fitting that we're here in the state of New Mexico. We're in Albuquerque. That's where the studio is. You live near Albuquerque yourself, and you are a member of the Jemez Pueblo, whose people have been living in this area for well over 1,000 years.
Yes, that's correct. I'm from the Jemez Pueblo. I was born and raised there, and my people speak the Towa language. That's T-O-W-A, Towa language, and we're descendant from the Mesa Verde people. And you're right, we have been residing in the mountains and now in the Jemez Valley for literally thousands of years.
And the Pueblo people seem to me, from my limited knowledge, to be somewhat different than other Native Americans. For example, you refer to yourself as people of the Pueblo, not of a tribe. Is that correct?
Yes. The Pueblos, that was given to us by the Spanish culture when they arrived. And we are a people that farmed. And we were hunter and gatherers, but we did not move with the animals. We were stationary and built our pueblos there, our villages, and very foundational, rooted people. We resided, we still reside near our mountain ranges. Many of the pueblos that make their home along the Rio Grande resided near mountains for gathering medicine, hunting, big game, small game. Wild turkey was very important to us in ceremonial and also our diet. We had corn, bean, and squash by then as well. We were very fortunate in the history to not be relocated. We kept very much intact our language, our ceremonial life, which is really makes us who we are as a different kind of people that live here in the state.
Mm-hmm. And there are, as I understand it, 19 different pueblos. 19
different pueblos, that's correct. And the dialects vary a little bit, but they are Keres is a predominant language that's spoken by the people. As I mentioned, ours is Towa. There's Caresian as well. But the Towa language is totally separate, much kind of like the Zuni language is very separate. Our elders taught us to be very mindful of the energies that are in the mountains, the energy that the medicine that is either gathered in root form or flower form or leaf form, those vibrations, to be appreciative and acknowledge those. And when you do that, it deepens your belief system in whatever the medicine is or in the way of life.
Well, here in New Mexico, and particularly in Albuquerque, I understand we are the major metropolitan city in the United States that has the highest percentage of Native American residents of any city. And I'm guessing that's probably quite similar for the whole state.
I would guess so. There's the Navajo are the biggest tribe. Zuni is the next size in population. Then it goes to Santo Domingo Pueblo, and then Jemez Pueblo, and then the state. You're very much correct. That has the largest population of Native American, and also when we say that, in the same breath, we can say that this state it probably experiences the most ceremonial energies in one state. It really is a focal point of ceremony that happens throughout the year. There's different villages that have similar but different seasonal ceremonies that happen that create a fantastic, vibrant frequency. Mm-hmm. And that many people that come to New Mexico that either get to know us or get to meet us, they'll say something to the effect of, there's something about this state. I don't know what it is. When I look at it on the map, it just looks like a high desert. And when you look at it on paper, maybe not even that inviting. But when a person comes here and begins to realize the friendliness of this state and where that friendship or that feeling of being a brother-sister like relationship to somebody that you might meet for the first time or might meet at a cafe. And I've heard of some people that reside in either the East Coast or perhaps in Florida. When they come here, they would say, this is the first place that I have come to where I can lean over and kind of intrude on somebody else's conversation that I'm overhearing and get a nice response and maybe even befriend that person. As to other states, they kind of seem, more self-contained and you pay attention to what's going on your table kind of experience. So I'm proud of the idea or the notion that we have a very friendly state and that, a lot of times, Native Americans are given, kind of props to set the tone of the friendliness of our state. And it's all because of the openness in our belief system in ceremony, that our ceremonies are not just for our people. It's not just for our mountains, our streams, our valleys, but it's globally connected. When we pray for ourselves, we're praying for the people on the other side of the globe as well. And learning about those other people and their beliefs is welcomed when we hold our ceremonies.
And the different tribes here in New Mexico, you didn't mention the Apaches. I know there are Apaches all around us.
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, they're very different than the Pueblo people.
They are. They're a little bit more of the nomadic tribes that came. Some of them came from the north, like the Navajos came from up even above the Canadian border at Athabascans, as their foundation of their people. So we have a mix of people that came down and had a little bit more of the nomadic experience of wandering around and finding their place in the state. The Apache, some of them reside a little bit more in the southern part of the state, a little bit more of the southwestern part of the state. The Navajos definitely take up a good portion of the western part of the state as well. So, it's really a great mix of cultures here that we get to learn about as well, because, we don't get to mix as much with some of the Apaches unless they come to our villages and they come to get to know our ceremonies, and that happened a lot. Way back when there was trading involved in not only the some of the things that they brought as big game protein to us, but also medicine and ceremonies in back in those times were mutually shared, because it was about it was about survival back then in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the Pueblo people came from Mesa Verde. I understand they also came from Chaco Canyon.
Yes.
And both locations, though, what you find are magnificent examples of architecture.
They are really magical places, and they are examples of knowledge and wisdom that was kind of magic. I mean, they decided to live in a very extreme environment. it seems extreme to us now, but was it extreme then? Was there more moisture back then? And the science that they have said that it is pretty arid, but there has to be something other than what we know of that made their existence prosper in a place that was very challenging. And I and I'm sure a bunch of other people that go there and do the research, are in awe of the architecture that they created in both places. And we still have a sense of that magic and oneness that they had at very high levels. But we have a sense of that today with the way that our ceremonies and our healing ceremonies take place. Just probably an inkling of what they were capable of is still that frequency and energy of healing still resides today, thankfully, because it's all oral tradition. There's nothing written down. So when an elder passes, it's a big deal. We try to, those that follow the path of the healers, try to absorb as much of that knowledge and wisdom, the chants, the songs, the gathering of the medicine, how it's done, when it's done. It's all extremely important to us.
Well, I had the honor of being invited by you to attend a feast day at the Jemez Pueblo, and I have to say it was marvelous.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. That dance has been happening there for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And I try to tell people when they come and visit the village for the first time, go with all your senses open. So sometimes, every now and then, when I had participated in the past, when I'm out there engaging in the ceremony, participating, I'm dancing, sometimes while you're out dancing and focused, your peripheral vision will capture somebody, a non-native, sitting on the ground, maybe in lotus meditation pose, with their eyes closed, sensing everything. Because at that point, the song, the chanting, the words, that's all alive at that one moment. If you can expand your perspective and not just say, well, that's just chanting. That's dancing. It's all alive. It all becomes alive at that moment. And there are some people that can attune themselves very much to those frequencies of healing that are not necessarily perceptible to all people. So, we want it to be a feast for the senses, all senses, including feast food, including what we celebrate the table with. And there we welcome, it could be strangers, people that just coming in for the first time to come in our home, engage the people, engage the kind of food, ask questions of what kind of food we eat, and know that those kind of interactions give life to our home. We believe our homes are living entities. We come in Arthea and I, when we come into the studio, we say, good morning, studio. Or when we're going to be finishing for the day, good night, studio, sweet dreams, studio, I love you, we'll see you tomorrow. Because it's a living space. We breathe life into our space. And when people come in with their happy moods, with their laughter, with their storytelling, it's a great pleasure to fill ourselves up with spiritually with those things, those kind of conversations around the table.
And I'm under the impression, Joe, that same appreciation that you have for vibration, for energy, for ceremony, and for the sacred is what you bring to your sculptures.
It is. It very much is. I ask myself the question, who am I in relationship to whatever the piece that I'm engaging in, be it a wildlife piece or a ceremonial piece? I'll ask, okay, who am I? Well, I'm a person that believes in these types of understandings that lend itself to the concepts of trying to communicate and reveal sacred understandings through my artwork, through figure, form, texture, color, those things. And sometimes you limit those things to maybe geometric forms. Maybe I'll limit myself to a geometric form or shape and challenge myself and have spirit communicate through those parameters of a sacred piece that will come together at a certain time, a certain place. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes the answers don't come right away. Sometimes the concept is thought of, meditated on, and lived with for even months. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 6 months before the clear vision or idea or concept comes through.
Let's talk about this piece, which is now going to become a regular feature of the new Thinking Allowed studio whenever I have live guests.
Oh, that's so fantastic to hear and know. Emergence is what we're talking about here. And emergence is about the idea of creator, the source that gives way to all things. And when I thought about creator, I thought about in the past, okay, what is the one symbol that is been used in the past, in ancient history? And the circle represents the soul or the spirit, and also can be representative of the completeness or wholeness of creator or God energy, which is what this represents. This is representing the purity of the potential to create anything, everything, from universes to sentient beings to animals, to giraffes and penguins and fish, water, deep blue skies, the depths of the ocean. So negative space right here is my symbol for pure potential. And the white representing the creation and the movement of that pure potential. And I thought about as that motion begins to move, it gives way to the energy of the female that is represented by the butterfly and the energy of the male that is represented by the dragonfly. Now, both of those insects go through a metamorphosis in life. So my analogy is through relationship, whatever that relationship is, we can begin our own magical metamorphosis of expanding our awareness and go through the gentle changes in life. As either as a male, I saw myself as a nymph clinging onto things as I walked upward in life, and through awareness and consciousness expansion, I began to see myself as sprouting my own wings and becoming a winged creature versus a creature that was dependent on clinging onto earthly things. And so I saw that in the same thing, the same nature of the feminine, and I used the butterfly as an analogy of a caterpillar going through the gentle cycles and changes in life to become a winged creature and able to gently fly through the breezes or sometimes harsh winds of life. And the male perspective is differently from the female, so their eyes are shaped differently. Their faces are composed of altar lines that represent multiple lifetimes as a male, multiple lifetimes as a female. So reincarnation is a part of the conversation of this piece. The deep blue represents water, all its life-giving properties, the flow energy of life, and then it goes into a changing in color that represents the morning sunrise, the setting sunset colors, the warmth of love. So all of those concepts are coming together in this one piece that is it's about movement, gentle movement. Now, half the circle is made up of the female energy and half the circle is made up of male energy. And as we spin it around, the concept goes into the non-physical realm, which I use the sun energy to represent the male and the moon energy to represent the female energy. Now, in this realm, their eyes are shaped the same because in the realm of spirit, I believe we have the availability to see as much as male and female energy. I mean, the perspective is vast in my thought, in my belief. So I use the star as a backdrop to represent the universe and the heavens on this side of the piece. So it speaks about physicality and the non-physical as well.
For me, it represents a sense of dialogue, like you and I sitting across from each other, and then these two beings.
Yeah. It's very much a piece that is supposed to inspire deep conversation and deep thought within yourself to ponder these things and ask yourself, okay, well, who am I in relationship to these energies and these concepts of this piece? And where do I find my truth if I contemplate these? Is it something similar, or is it something that is a little bit more different? But, it's meant to do all of that, is to inspire deep contemplation.
Well, whenever people ask me about the piece, because it'll be up now for many years, and I'm sure we'll get many questions, I'm going to refer them to this video.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic.
So we'll take a short break, and we'll put another piece up here.
Okay. Yes.
And then we'll continue.
Okay, sounds fantastic.
Now I think it's important to once again talk about the magnificent location of Chaco Canyon, which was built by your ancestors. It's a large area. I was there not long ago, and I will say it was very hot and windy. It was uncomfortable being there because of the dryness, the heat, and the wind. So I didn't even stay as long as I might have. I left a little early. It's a harsh environment, and yet you see this magnificent architecture there. And I understand that Chaco Canyon was a place where natives came, not just from North America, but even as far as South America to trade. Yes. So it was a well-known trading site, and today we would regard it as sort of an out-of-the-way, difficult-to-get-to place.
Yes, it was definitely a trading site, a place of deep ceremony, and a place of mystery, and I think there should be room for mystery in our life, and I'm okay with not knowing all of the truths of Chaco Canyon, that there's room for us to create from knowing of what the evidence is, what we gather, the knowledge that we can gather from the evidence that they left. There was miraculous things that happened there. And there's, like I said, there's room for mystery because it gives us the opportunity to engage our imaginations. And that's where really the magic lies, I think, in life, back then and today, is exploring our imaginations. And I think it's true that whatever you can imagine could become as an experience. And it's up to us to dream big. And I think today, a lot of times, we're not challenging ourselves to dream as big, to experience life as large as it could be. And I think sometimes society determines that for us. And I think in the history, in past, when that wasn't there, I think our ancient people were able to use their imagination and use the natural intelligence that comes to you when you engage imagination on that kind of level or purity. And also, I think there was a time where community came together to engage imagination at that level. And when you have a community or a large amount of people that are at the same level of engaging imagination and frequency and in spirituality, that's when I think a lot of magical things can happen. I've heard stories from my great-grandmother, she was alive when I was about 13, 14, 15 years old. And some of the ceremonies that she shared with me were magical to me. They were a reality experienced that she experienced it in her when she was 8 and 9 years old, the ceremonies. And if you think to yourself, when my great-grandmother was 8 or 9 years old, it was probably like 1870s, 1880s, and she was experiencing the wisdom and the knowledge of people who lived even prior to them. And they had wisdom from people even that goes back even further. And so I thought to myself when I heard these stories, well, how could this be? And how could it have been performed back then? And what is the difference today? And she kind of said, well, we believed and we didn't question. We didn't question at all. We just believed and strengthened that belief system that created and drew to us at that moment the energy and the frequency that gave us, our people, when I say us, the ability to perform magical ceremonies. And it was something that stayed with me all of my life. And it's those types of ponderings and activating my own imagination that helped me vibe the energy that gave way to creations such as Emergence and such as Oneness. These are pieces that I had the idea, had the thought, but I pretty much can say that the intelligence that vibed through me was not of me. It came through me and became of me as it did. So that's what I call the natural intelligence. Everybody has it. It's a matter of if we can vibe that frequency, if we can settle ourselves and kind of walk the middle way, so to speak. It's because there's the mind of consciousness that guides us through our day, and then there's the higher mind or the subconscious or that part of you that is other than what appears in physicality.
Well, that higher consciousness, or natural intelligence as you call it, guided your life so that you came together with another visionary, a person who thought big, someone I've never met and don't know, but someone you work closely with, who decided he was going to build a hotel here in Albuquerque based on the original architecture from Chaco Canyon. Yes. And he invited you to create the sculpture that graces the lobby of that hotel today.
It was a magical experience. It really was. His name is Mr. Jim Long, and he owns Heritage Hotels is what he owns. And I met him at a very small opening at a friend's house. It was a private opening, and he came and he saw Oneness. He saw other spiritual pieces, the concepts. I'll give you some titles. One was called The Process. Another one was called Embodiment of Prayer. Another is called Nurtured by Prayer. Relationship, The Eternal Journey. These are all pieces that are hold the concepts of spiritual movement. And he took his time and looked at all the pieces. And then he began to ask me what the inspirations were, and I gave him some of the details of how they came and what meanings they hold. And then the conversation turns, and he says, Joe, I have a dream. I want to build the first hotel that is reflective of the Pueblo culture. And so I think us coming together is meant to be, because I want to ask you if you can give a series of presentations to the architectural team that I'm hiring to come and create this facility. And they were coming from California. I think they all had a hand in the creation of Napa Valley and how the farmers market and so forth that is built near that area there. And I said, that I think I could do that. Yeah, thank you. I feel honored that you feel that I am appropriate for something like that. He goes, yes. Now, if everything goes well, Joe, I love this piece, Oneness. I think I have found my centerpiece for this facility. Now, Joe, what do you think about making this piece larger? And I said, Mr. Long, I think 3 feet would be phenomenal. He goes, Joe, bigger. Think bigger. Mr. Long, 6 feet would be magnificent. And then Mr. Long goes, Joe, I'm thinking 13 feet tall. I think my mouth was ajar. My eyes probably bulged out a little bit. And I was jumping inside of myself, trying to be self-contained. And I said, Mr. Long, that would be truly incredible. And he said, first thing is first. He said, let's have you over and let's give you an opportunity to to talk to the assembled architectural team that will be there. So we had, I think, three presentations. The first was speaking about the spiritual concepts, and then the second was speaking about what was considered universally spiritual, and also what things that were a little bit on the taboo side of our belief system. And my approach was really to try and give them a universal sense of what was pure and spiritual, not only for Pueblo people, but for the Apache people, for the Plains Indian people, so that they felt comfortable when they came into this facility. So I spoke about the directions, north, south, east. Those were very important to us, that the facility know exactly which way north was and which way south was. So when you come into the facility, the front doors are exactly due north, and the back end and the sliding doors that run across the facility is exactly south. So that was very important. So it's also I said to them, it's also about connecting with Mother Earth. Pueblo people, and I think other people, other native indigenous people, seek caverns or caves or going into the womb of Mother Earth, so to speak, to have our ceremonies take place there, or to gather medicine there, or to do meditations there. So as you go into the Hotel Chaco, it kind of opens, it goes into the front doors, and it seems like it goes into a little bit of a cave and then opens up into a cavern. And there I said, what is also important for us is Father-Son, Father-Son to see you while you perform your ceremonies, to acknowledge the feminine qualities of Mother Moon as well. So when you go into the facility, on top, you see a round disc that was designed by Tammy Garcia that represent, and it's a white colored glass disc that represent the moon. And then beams that are made from the pine tree that represent the sun's energy as well. Speaking about these things to the group that was assembled, we didn't know exactly what was going to take root and what they were going to take of our presentations. The third time that we met was interesting as well. There was three chairs set out in front. Mr. Long's chair was set out in back. And then there was a huddle of the architectural team for interior and exterior. And they were very much going over what their notes were. And then Mr. Long came up to us and said, now this time, the teams assembled are going to give a presentation to you. And then after they give their presentations, they would like, and so would I, like to give them feedback on what they've created and what their thoughts are so far. And so each team got up and did their presentations and came up with their ideas and so forth. And then once they were done, they said, okay, now that they're done, they gave me a little Sharpie pen and they said, okay, now please give them some feedback on what you think and what you sense of what they've designed. Intimidating moment for me. So I got the pen. I stood up. I looked back at everybody. I got even a little bit more intimidated because everybody was astute with their notebooks and so forth and watching me. And then I turned back around to the board and I pretended that they weren't there. I totally blocked them out and said, okay, just speak what feels good to you. Speak what is feels authentic to our belief system, and also give them feedback on anything that doesn't feel right or has a negative vibration or frequency to it. So I just, okay. I said, once I cleared that in my mind, I went to the board and I started referencing this and that, crossing out this and that. applauding this and that. And then they all took notes. We did that for the exterior as well. And what was fun about this is they said, Joe, we want you to pretend there's no budget. Just no budget. Whatever your idea is, just speak it. What they commonly were calling, I think they were calling it mind mapping at the time. Just say what comes to your mind, and we figure out if it's in the budget later on. Mm-hmm. So boy, did I spend some money, drawing up, making suggestions and so forth, and it was a lot of fun. And it was an honor to see what came about as we walked into the early stages of the building being built. They welcomed us in there to see the progress. We got kind of the behind the scene look of the progress of the building. And, it was really thrilling. It was very humbling. And everything was done on a handshake. There was no contracts that were drawn up between Mr. Long and I. Everything that felt great. It felt authentic, and it felt as if it was, I don't know what else to say, old school. It felt, very much just a handshake. There was nothing other
trust. It's about trust.
It felt very trusting. Yes, it did. It was great. It was fascinating at the same time.
And so I will encourage viewers who happen to be in Albuquerque, stop in at the Hotel Chaco where you can see the 13-foot version of Oneness here. And now let's tell our viewers a little more about this particular piece.
I was working in the studio when the thought of the concept was first conceived, and I was listening to Wayne Dyer years ago give one of his presentations, and in one of his presentations he says, and this is a very simplified version of his quote, but he says he was quoting Jesus in a conversation with God, asking a question. Jesus said, "May I know you as I knew you even before my beginning." Now, the quote went on a little bit more, but that was the gist of it. And when I heard that, I remember I was working diligently on a sculpture, and I heard that, and I stopped. And I said that a couple of times to myself. And then I said, it would be so fascinating to create a piece based upon that quote, "May I know you as I knew you even before my beginning." And then I began to ponder that. And I said, okay, I'm going to make a sculpture about that. So, like I said earlier, sometimes those things reside within you for a week or 2 or 6 months. In this case, it was about 6 months. I came to a point where I said, you know what? I don't think it's doable. How can you create a form, figure, texture that represents that quote? And so I was at a point where I said, it's probably not doable. So let me just give it back to spirit. Let me just give it back. And when I did that, when I released it, because I was contemplating too much, I was trying too hard to conceive it. And so I remember it was in the shower, and she was getting ready for the day, and I was in the shower, and I had just a flash of a light that came to me, and it gave me the first section of it. I just saw a movement going up. That's all I saw. It was a movement, but that movement came with a feeling of a reference to my idea of that quote. So I knew it pertained to the idea of, may I know you as I knew you even before my beginning. And so I was very excited about it. And I told Althea, I said, my wife Althea, I said, "Hon, I think I got it. The idea about the sculpture, remember about 6 months ago?" She didn't know what I was talking about. She just said, "Oh, great. I'm glad you have it, hon. I'm sure it's going to work out." But I was excited. So I finished up and I went into the studio and I thought, what we're talking about is a movement to experience more of what we are, which is the Creator's energy. And the more we yearn for it, the more that movement began to spin. And the more we yearned and it spin, the more we yearned for it dictated how fast the revolution of that movement was going to be. And it spun so fast that it began to individuate from the source energy as I saw it. as it began to reside in my mind's eye, to where it was so excited about realizing its individuation that it burst in glory, in bliss. It burst. And that's kind of where it ended. And then I began to think about that, and I thought, well, it's kind of like the Big Bang Theory. If you think about it, is what I thought. Maybe that's how the soul was born and the universe was born, as a burst in bliss. And then I thought, well, if I were to burst in bliss and then come to this realm, I would conceive that energy and orient myself in the 4 directions, I thought. And so in this piece, as it's moving upward and it bursts in bliss, it conceived of the 4 directions. So it has 4 arms that swirl upward that represent these 4 cardinal directions. And I thought to myself, I believe I hold the essence of the female as well as the male. And I believe in multiple lifetimes, and I believe, based upon my own meditations, that I've held the body of a woman in past lives. But here I am as a male. And I've chosen, and I believe choice is in the non-physical realm as well as obviously resides in the physical realm, that I would have these parents, that I would be of the Pueblo of Jemez, that I would have these types of understandings, and that this is how this piece was going to be composed. It had the male energy, and like in Emergence, the male had a certain perspective about life, and it was a life of a protector, a life that created a foundation for family to reside, and he protected that foundation that the family resided in. And then the other side was the female. The magenta color represented her energy and her essence. And she was very vulnerable because it was through her that life comes through. And that in order for life to come through her, her nature has to be of vulnerability and trust. And the male is what protects that vulnerability to make her feel at ease, so that she plays her part and he plays his part in this realm of relativity, in this realm of relationship. And it really is that. It's a realm that is relative to what is existing outside of ourselves and how we relate to that and who we are in relationship to that. Now, their mouthpieces are extended, as you can see, and they are engaged in a song of gratitude, of gratefulness, because that's the one thing that I fall back to when times are troubling, when times are hard. I'm thankful for these things. And when I'm thankful for these things, it empowers me and centers me to get through the challenging moments that are in front of me. So gratitude is a big energy source that helps us through this lifetime. And as you saw in the Emergence piece, their faces are composed of altar lines that represent multiple lifetimes. So that's when I thought to myself, this energy that swirls upward, the soul energy, contains the energy of the male, it contains the energy of the female, it recognizes the beauty and the color movement that we have here, in the rising moments of the sun and in the setting moments of the sun. And the internal dialogue of the challenges of life are also recognized on the inside. It's represented by this texture. This texture starts out very subtle, but it really increases the intensity as it moves upward. And that's my way of communicating kind of the consequences that we create in this lifetime experience. I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, for my soul, maybe I started out as a caterpillar. Maybe my consequences were insignificant. But as I kind of went up the ladder of existence all the way to sentient being, that's where the consequences really mattered. And so the intensification of that conversation is exemplified by the texture, and that that the idea of the vastness of the heavens and the universe are contained within us. I believe that's true for us. I believe it's true for me. So the color of the heavens and the universe are contained inside of this sculpture, which is the analogy of this movement of the universe and the vastness of the heavens are contained within us. So when I step back and look at this piece, and I thought to myself, well, what is this? What should I call this? And I simply could only say oneness. It is the oneness of all things that come together. It's the movement. It's the soul. It's the universe. It's the macro and the micro movement of the soul. Maybe even the soul of the world, we can say. And when I explained these things to Mr. Long, that's when he said, I think I found my centerpiece. I think this is a piece that represents the history of your people, the ancient mysteries and magic that your people had, all the way to today, and how we can move through life, and how we can look at a piece like this and ground ourselves if we touch it, if we believe in the imagination that this came from. That can only be a good thing.
Well, it's an honor for me to have Oneness and Emergence here in the New Thinking Allowed studio. I think I'll alternate them so that they are both exposed from time to time to our viewers when we have live guests.
Sounds so great. I'm really honored and very proud to be a part of your studio, your life, your conversations. It's gonna harken back to our studio. We're gonna feel this energy. It's gonna make us even more prosperity. Prosperity is gonna ring through our studio even more so now that we know that this is gonna reside here with you.
As our viewers know, we've had over 1,000, maybe 2,000 conversations on deep spiritual, metaphysical, psychological topics about the soul. Mm-hmm. And I can say that the conversations that I've had here in this studio and on the internet with people resonate very deeply with everything that you've said about your work as an artist.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I feel a strong sense of compatibility with your work. So these pieces have found a real home.
Thank you so much. I'm honored once again. I'm truly honored.
Thank you, Joe. And for those of you watching or listening, thank you for being with us, because you are the reason that we are here.
Book 3 in the new Thinking Allowed dialogue series is UFOs and UAP, Are We Really Alone? Now available on Amazon.
You can now download a free PDF copy of issue 7 of the New Thinking Allowed magazine, or order a beautiful printed copy.